In the Fuzzy Memories podcast, we celebrate the good, the rad, and the fugly of the 80s and 90s.
We're three latchkey kids who made it out alive.
And in each episode, we break down all the culture that popped, 1 year at a time.
Whether it's the birth of legends...
I'm Lyme disease free today, and I have Whitney Houston and MTV to thank. Or audacious moves.
Imagine also the poor Golden Gate Bridge. You turn 75 and people have a party on you.
Yep. I don't want that.
Or even confusing PSAs.
And the stop, drop, and roll. I mean, I assumed
Yes.
as an adult I would catch on fire weekly.
All the time!
We've got a take that will make you laugh.
We've also got thoughts on all sorts of random phenomena and the most unmitigated of golf.
Why sharks can't be trusted, people can't be trusted, and rivers can't be trusted. It's collusion.
Of the highest degree.
Uh-huh.
You were counseling me to start my remarks with, first of all, bitch.
Everyone in that room would have snapped to attention.
It's going to be basically coffee lids, shark revenge, and then maybe like Matt Getz. God, we need to do something about him.
Join us every other Wednesday to celebrate the hits, the misses, and the misfits of the weirdest decades.
If I could tell my 14-year-old self from 1990 that I would be eating in a Cheesecake Factory in
Beverly Hills.
I'd be like, we did it. We did it, Joe.
We did it.
Listen and subscribe to Fuzzy Memories on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and your favorite podcast platform.
Hello, and welcome to Broads and Books. I'm Amy.
And I'm Erin, and this is episode number 72. Telephone.
Telephone. Cast your mind back to the collaboration between Lady Gaga and Beyonce. Circa
there.
2009, 10?
Yeah.
I forget which year it was.
It was a great collaboration, no matter what year
Do you
it was.
remember the video? It was insane.
Yes.
We're going to link to it.
Yeah.
It's a 10-minute opus on...
Everything you
I
could
mean,
want.
it's as Gaga as you could get, I think, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, for sure.
I like it because they just want to be left alone, damn it.
Just stop.
Just leave me alone. These girls are at the
leave
club.
me
They're
alone.
dancing. Their significant others cannot stop calling them.
Can't stop.
They're like, just leave me alone.
Stop it right now.
Stop it. So that's kind of where we went with this theme. I like that, the song itself, I think it's probably saying some stuff about relationships and dudes.
For sure, yeah.
But I'm just feeling the F off vibe right now.
It's a great vibe.
I'm
I think
feeling
it's
like-
a good vibe for this year.
Yeah, it's very 2020. Just, I can't handle this shit anymore.
Right?
I can't do it.
I feel like everyone is at that point where it's
Yes.
just like, I've reached it. Like, I thought I reached it a few months ago, but this is new. This is a
new.
new level
This
of
is a
I've
new-
reached it. Okay?
Like if we're trying to find a rock bottom for 2020, it just keeps getting lower and
Yeah.
lower and lower
Yeah.
until we're just going to be in the center of the earth or something. It's just, it's real bad. So
I mean,
just
my
leave me
favorite
alone.
quote this week, he was using it in reference to the debate, but I'm going to use it just as an overall message of 2020.
let's hear it.
To quote Jake Tapper, it's a hot mess inside a dumpster fire, inside a train wreck.
Jake Tapper has a way with words.
And deadpan, like his face couldn't have been more serious when he said it, and I loved every second of it.
What I liked, I did not watch the debates.
Right, fair.
You did, which I'm
know,
still
I know.
shocked by.
I don't know why I did.
I knew it was going to be a mess. I don't think that I anticipated the amount of mess. But you and Mike soldiered through.
Yeah.
And you watched it all. I just wondered if Jake Tapper, just a few minutes in, was like, this is what I'm going to say. And just was, saying it to himself as it went through. Yeah.
There was almost a moment where they went to, of course, because they're going to do a roundtable and have 50 pundits talking about the debate.
Just so annoying.
I know. They flash back right after the debate, and there was just sort of a beat of dead silence where everybody's like, I don't, like, should we spin? I don't even know what just happened, which is the exact feeling everyone at home had. Like,
What?
was that a trap?
What's that?
Was that SNL? No, that was real. Okay. All right. Well,
Speaking of, I can't wait to see SNL's take on this.
I know.
We're
Yeah.
going to watch it probably after we record. It's Sunday. Yeah, that's going to be insane.
I can't wait.
Can't
I
wait.
can't wait.
So yeah, F off. That's the vibe.
off.
That's the theme of this week's episode is people that just want to be left alone, damn it.
Yeah. So speaking kind of the 2020 vibe, since we specifically went there, has the quarantine or pandemic changed how you feel about being left alone?
I feel like in a lot of ways my life is the same because I worked from home before, but I do feel like I am witnessing everyone around me go slowly mad. And
Right?
often in very public ways, either on Zoom calls, on social media. Oh, people are losing their goddamn minds.
Right?
And so it feels like, especially the extroverts, people who would identify as like, I thrive off of other people, they are going nuts.
Yes.
And they're trying to bring the rest of us down.
What's the weirdest thing you've seen on a Zoom call?
Well, for a while, my team conference calls were just show and tells, where it was like people, like, let me show you my house. But there was this weird feeling of like, I need this right now. And just taking the computer from room to room. And it's like, oh, cool. That's your garage. Cool.
Okay, that's
I will say there's still an element of show and tell. We are often showing each other's animals on our conference call, but that's fine.
That's delightful.
That's fine.
That's necessary.
Yes.
I get behind that. Your garage, not so much.
No. Yeah,
No.
There were a few long-winded soliloquies just about life from some of the team members. Yeah, it's been rough for some of them.
Huh.
Meanwhile, I'm just like, everyone calm down.
You're like eating your peanut butter pretzels, being like, did you guys not figure out how to do this?
I mean,
snacks,
yes.
comfy clothes.
Yes.
That's it.
And some people are still putting on fancy clothes. And I've called them out on it. I'm like, what's happening over there? Well, it's how I feel more professional. I'm like, well, that's a problem. You need your PJs
Yeah.
for productivity. PJs for productivity.
P for P.
Well, Erin, in what, just thinking about being around other people, is there a setting or a situation where you get the most annoyed with other people?
My first instinct was to say just like everyday errands.
Yeah.
Like that's when I would
yeah.
lose it. But I think more than that, it's kid related activities. And like I haven't had to deal. That's been a silver lining of 2020. Like there's not concerts and things, in-person conferences, things like that you have to go to, open houses, stuff like that, where you're seeing other people. But it's those situations because it brings out a certain element in a certain kind of parent.
I bet it
where
does.
It's like, this is the greatest thing that's happened to them all year.
Oh,
It's
no.
like their Emmys.
Oh,
like I'm
no.
bringing my A game. I'm dressed. I'm ready. My kid is great. I'm the best thing since sliced bread. Like it just brings a certain level. And there's always that parent that ends up being the one ahead of you at conferences that it's like 20 minutes over. And you're like, why are you still like, it's first grade.
Oh my God.
If we require this much, we need
This is
another
a problem.
conference time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in those situations where I just get really, and it's not always a protective thing with, sometimes it is. When they get older, like with Zach, a few times that I was really frustrated or got really annoyed with people, it was because of how adults were acting in a situation. Like I can remember a wrestling tournament in his college years in Nashville, and someone ahead of me said something derogatory about two of the students that were on Zach's team because they were a different race.
Oh, perfect. So that's another
Yeah.
2020 moment, even though it wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I lost it. I saw red. Now, the unfortunate part was that this was when Zach was wrestling. So people thought I was mad at the ref and I was yelling at the lady in front of me. We got into it pretty good, so much that Mike got down off the bleachers because in Mike's mind, he thought he was going to have to fight the husband.
Oh, sure.
And he wanted to be on level ground.
Oh.
He didn't want to be on the bleachers because he didn't think his hit would connect as well.
Well, that's very specific in his thinking.
I know.
Yeah. But also, he was there for you.
I know.
Yeah.
I do. How it ended too was the woman turning to her husband and saying, "Are you going to let her talk to me that way?" And he just looked at me and I'm like, like I literally just moved my head like, Aria? Like I don't
I
even
will
know.
take you on too.
Yeah, I lose my like ability to recognize that I've never been in a fight. What am I doing? But I was hot that day.
Was that the one where later the teammates were talking to Zach about like,
That was high school.
Oh, okay.
No, later one of the coaches came up to me and was like, "Oh, you got fired up. What was happening?" And I was like, "It was not the ref. I was not upset with the ref because people
it was this
didn't
asshole
understand
in front of me."
Yeah, I mean, sadly, I missed the end of that match for Zach. He won. It was fine, but it was that lady that I was the most perturbed by.
I mean, there's no place for that.
No, it was so rude and derogatory, and I could not believe that it got said out loud.
Yeah.
And some of the people she was talking about were like 4 people away. And
Oh my God.
I can't.
No, those kind of
can't.
people that just are
Yeah.
so in themselves. Yeah.
And I had listened to her during her son's match just berate the student from Zach's team that wrestled her son, who, by the way, the student from Zach's team's terrible wrestler. And he still beat her son, which tells me that her son's no good. And she's one of those parents that you could tell is like fully invested. If my kid doesn't win, this is the worst thing ever. Like,
oh my
just,
God, calm down.
yeah, I can't do that. I can't do those parents. Like, I can't handle it. Like, just let me eat my weird nachos from the stand. We're all getting through this together.
Yeah.
Nothing's happening. There's no Olympic scout. There's no scholarship on the line. Half the time the trophy falls apart in the bag on the way home. Like, this isn't a thing.
And you're eating shitty nachos, and you're
Yes.
just like everyone perspective.
Yes, just settle down.
Aren't you
Mike's
glad you
getting
don't?
Jimmy John's delivered to the gym. It's mass hysteria, so we don't need to have this level of seriousness for what's happening.
So you don't have to do that stuff in 2020.
No,
so that's
it's been great
nice.
because that's
Yeah.
where I definitely will say that I've gotten the most heated. It's always been in a
Yeah.
situation with my kids, and it's always been another parent that doesn't seem
Mm-hmm.
to understand how to be chill. Just be cool.
Just be cool,
Just be
everyone.
cool. Look what you're raising. That's
Oh my
insanity.
God,
It's
yes.
insanity.
And look at the example you're setting for your kids.
And if you look at their kids, most of the time you're like, "Oh, buddy, I'm sorry," because they just look sad and forlorn.
they're so
and
embarrassed of their parents,
so
probably.
embarrassed. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. Side note: that lady had the biggest hair I've ever seen in person.
That fits with what I had in my head.
She was a tiny woman with huge hair, like alarmingly large hair. Like, there
Interesting.
was a moment during the conversation where I thought I might have miscalculated. She may have a weapon in that hair. This may be a time to back out. But I don't usually listen. to
Wow, that's a benefit of big hair. Being
Yeah.
able to hide weapons or other, snacks.
Yeah.
Just,
That's
another
true.
storage space.
True.
Yeah.
What do you think's the worst thing about being around other people?
Oof. I think one of the tendencies that I really don't like about myself is I am a people pleaser. So even when people are saying super dumb shit to me, I will often be like, oh yeah, okay. And then try to have to control my face so that I don't reveal that I think they were a super class moron.
Yeah.
So I think that's it. It's sort of battling my own tendencies of trying not to make waves, trying not to have a confrontation, even when I hear the most ridiculous, maybe even offensive stuff. Just like, oh, okay. I am not. I'm good at sublimating my own desire to start a fight. My face is not. My face is telling them like, oh God,
You said that.
like I have to walk away now. Because otherwise, I don't know what's going to happen to the rest of my face and to my
Right.
body and my limbs and everything. Like, it's
Yeah.
just going to go bad. So I think that's the worst thing.
Yeah.
Even, like, I'm talking family events. I'm talking parties.
Yeah.
I'm talking even strangers. I'm afraid of doing it. And I hate that about myself.
I don't blame you.
You know?
I'm the same way. Yeah.
Yeah.
My face always gives me away.
I think, we have a lot of empathy, which is great. But our face sometimes doesn't comply.
No.
And it will, say, wow, you're an idiot, real better than any
Could
words
be a
can.
real Achilles heel.
Well, Aaron, thinking about the future, because there will be a future after 2020, I
Let's
think.
hope.
I'm
Thank
hoping.
God.
I'm
I
hoping.
mean, I'm yeah.
Think far in the future into your golden years. And your golden years are whenever you define them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Next year, maybe. I don't know.
Do you think in these golden years that you're more likely to be like a hermit or a social butterfly?
I think that I am going to be a combo. Like, I like to think that I will be the godfather in that I will stay put, but you will come to me. Like, when I want socialization, you will bring me lasagna.
That's very specific.
I will give, well, it's godfather. I would
Yeah.
Italian.
Okay, yeah. Yep, that makes sense. Sorry.
Like one of the dishes I really like that's Italian. You're going to bring me lasagna or cannolis. I'm a big fan. And we're going to do whatever I say.
Wow.
Because it's my golden years.
This also sounds
And
like
then
you
be
might be
gone
in
with you.
prison, like you're,
Oh,
lording
no, I'm
over.
just like holding court in my house. Like you go to see me like the Godfather.
Wow.
Like you have been offered an invitation, which is a big deal, so you do it. And then that way I can sort of dole out the invitations when I feel like it.
That's pretty great.
Like this week, I do feel like seeing you. Next week, not so much.
Yeah.
I got enough leftovers. I don't need you to bring any.
do they
food.
have to like kiss your ring when you? Okay. All right.
No, I mean they should just keep a safe distance.
Well,
I just
yeah. I think we should keep up social distancing.
yeah.
after
There's some
this.
things I am fine with
For
yeah.
sure. Am I your consigliere during
Yes.
this? Okay, great.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. So whatever you would like. We need a regular lasagna. We're going to need a vegan lasagna.
Yes, we will.
And then, she's probably going to want some of those donuts from Whole Foods. So,
Maybe an ice cream sandwich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to need cannoli. She's going to need an ice cream sandwich. Mm-hmm. And then you can come
Really
over.
ply us with snacks and good foods.
Now I'm thinking of all these scenes from Godfather and replacing you and I in them. Like when they're out on the boat, just the two floating. And
Yeah. I was thinking of the horse head. How does that play into it? Are we
Made out of vegan chocolate.
like an Easter bunny made out of chocolate? Okay.
yeah.
Huh.
I
Will
think-
there be the violence that comes from The Godfather?
I mean, I guess if it's necessary.
Yeah,
but
that's
I
true.
don't.
Okay.
I don't want to take it off the table so that people feel like they
Right.
can just act willy nilly.
Good call. Yeah.
But I
it's
don't-
not going to be gratuitous.
No, I don't want to have to do it. It's my golden years. What are
Yes.
you doing? What are you
I
doing?
don't want to strain my hip.
Exactly. And I'll tell you right now, you bring an orange and I'm throwing it right back at you. I am not dying. So it's over.
I like this. That's
That's how I imagine things going.
Yeah.
I don't know whether or not that happens, we'll see.
Okay, well, I mean, it's given us some ideas. 2020 ain't all bad, I guess. So we're talking about being left alone. I'm super psyched about our future golden years
I
and being
think so.
left alone.
Yeah.
My fiction pick for this theme is called We Went to the Woods by Kate Dolan Leach from 2019. And Mac is sort of the main character. She's a 20-something that's sort of disillusioned with the modern world. And she's currently living at home with her parents because she was on a reality show and made a real bad move that has made her like a social media pariah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So at this time, she's not feeling real good about life, just in general. She meets 4 other people, all of whom had very comfortable upbringings. You know, they're pretty wealthy. They're all white. They're very privileged. And they make a decision that the world is going to shit and they just want to do their own thing. So they literally go and they try to live off the land, away from everything modern.
Oh my gosh.
So Louisa is one of the girls that she meets, and she's rich, and her family owns a plot of land in upstate New York, and it's an abandoned farm. It actually used to have sort of a socialist commune up there, so they decide this is where they're going to go. And they're calling it the Homestead.
Of course they are. I love it.
You can already anticipate where some of this is going. Yeah. So there's also there's Mac, there's Louisa, there's also Bo, who is this sort of dude that, you know, Mac is kind of hot after. He's a super asshole, though, of course. You know. There's Chloe, who is a musician, kind of a dreamy type. And there's Jack, who's this smart dude who has actual farm experience. So he's very helpful in this. Mac, meanwhile, is sort of navigating the world of this group and the world of this survivalist farm. And she's excited at first about some of the projects. They're rehabbing the house, which, by the way, has no running water or power, anything. They're like full on rustic here.
Okay.
She's excited about planting gardens, about fermenting stuff, you know, all the things that are so sort of foreign to us right now. She also finds she was in a graduate program before she got kicked out because of this this reality show thing.
Okay.
And she finds a new focus. She starts researching the past of this area, this farm, with the utopian communities that always inevitably sort of declined into sex cults. Because, of course they do.
Of course. Yeah.
Tale as old as time.
Now I have the Beauty and the Beast theme song in my head.
But okay, so they've got their homestead, but also there's another homesteader farm nearby that introduces all sorts of new relationships, all sorts of new suspicions. The groups start turning against each other, and winter is coming. Literally, it's coming. and they're in a house with no running water, power, anything.
Yeah. Okay.
So I chose this for this theme because I think in some ways, these kids, they have it all. Their parents have the American dream, like we talked about a few episodes ago. But they see how empty it is. And although they pretty much have everything, they just want to be left alone. So they think the whole world is just too much, which I kind of get that these days. But they go to this crazy extent, like so many people have done before them. There's a great quote that kind of sums up the book. It says, "We thought homemade pickles and working for ourselves under the broad open sky would save us. We really did. Everything was so irredeemably fucked up and horrifying that the only answer seemed to be self-sufficiency, homegrown zucchini, and big crocks of sauerkraut." And there you go.
Yeah.
So people trying to make it on their own, asking to be left alone, and you see what happens.
I can see how you can get there, though, where you think
For
that everything's
sure.
so I just need to start over. I mean, if there's every year that we've all had that feeling, it's definitely this year. Like, I just need to reset, rewind. I can't tell you the number of times I thought, you know what, we just need to simplify. Like, I need to cut all of this out.
Yes. Well, and I think there's a big element of these are really young people and they're, I think we've had to do this, but maybe not to the extent that the young people these days do, where they're just looking at the world and how messed up everything is. And they're like, where do I even start? Like, what do I do? I just want to go away. I just want to be left alone from all of this. And so the author kind of takes it to its natural conclusion, and it's really interesting. Wow. A good read. It's kind of there's a bit of a thriller aspect to it.
Oh,
there's a lot of, really remarkable writing, a lot of good sort of character studies. It's really interesting.
Oh, sounds great. All right. Well, the book that I picked this week is, it was just published in February of 2020. It was actually recommended by Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah.
Yes.
And when we talked to him, it's called Everywhere You Don't Belong by Gabriel Bump.
Okay.
And this is his first novel. I can tell you right now, I hope there's many more.
Ooh.
So it centers around Claude McKay Love, who is living on the South Shore in Chicago. And he's sort of just like getting by. Like, he's living his life. He's not really, he's not part of groups that are, anti-police or trying to help with the riots or sell drugs or do any of that. But he's also not really doing any activism or anything like that. He's just kind of right down the middle. He doesn't really have a place that he belongs. And partially that's because when he was young, both of his parents left, and he's being raised by his grandmother.
Okay.
And his grandma's best friend, Paul, who happens to be a gay man that is possibly one of the funniest characters that I've ever read. Ooh. He's fantastic. And partway, we see his life, and he's just kind of struggling, and he ends up meeting this girl named Janice, who is being raised by, he ends up finding out they're her cousins because her parents were killed. And they meet and become friends right before a major riot breaks out on the South Shore of Chicago because a young black man was horribly murdered in the street because they thought he was stealing from a house when in fact he was just letting the cats out for the neighbors that were gone.
Good Lord.
Or checking on the cats. So during this, Janice loses the male cousin that was help raising her. He is killed in this, and his wife is devastated and can't get past it and can't even be around Janice because it reminds her. So she ends up leaving Janice with Grandma and Paul too. So Claude and Janice grow up together, and they form this bond that is sometimes girlfriend, boyfriend, sometimes sister, brother, but very deep. They've both been through this tragedy, and they're both trying to find some place where they should be, some place that they should belong. And, fast forward, there's lots of other things that happen. He chooses to go on to college, and their paths intersect again. But it's one of... I struggled a little bit with how to describe it because the way that it's written, it's almost like short stories making up the novel,
okay.
But they're chronological, but they kind of like start and end with a character in each chapter, and you kind of get to see what happens, and then he'll kind of tell you what happened later in life to him. And at times it is hilarious, like laugh out loud funny, and other times it's like cry out loud tragic.
Wow.
I mean, it hits all those spots. But I picked it this week because I think that it's a great example of he just wants to be left alone in terms of let me find my own way. Like, let me figure out where I belong. But he doesn't want to be left alone from like love and true relationships. He's really longing for some place where he feels like someone's not going to leave him. He belongs there. He can do some good. And I like that kind of play on this theme, that sometimes that to me, that's kind of the point of being left alone, right? Like we want to be left alone from the bullshit, but we want people that we have an honest, loving, true connections with.
It's that sort of push and pull thing.
Yeah. And there's a lot of some gang violence and things in the book, and he doesn't want to deal with any of that. He doesn't want to be on the basketball team. He doesn't want to be recruited. He doesn't want any of that. He just wants to be able to figure out his own path. And I have to say that it is probably hands down one of my favorite books I've read this year.
Wow.
It is really great. The writing is different, but it's really entertaining. It keeps you going, but it has a lot to say. I think it's really timely book. It really makes you feel like you're there. He did grow up, the author did, on the South Shore of Chicago. The riot that happens at the beginning is not a real riot that took place, but he was living in Missouri at the Ferguson riots during a lot of the time that he was writing this. So he modeled some of the things he saw, some of the news stories. And given what we've seen as of
Just
late,
this year, yeah,
you can absolutely see how realistic and true it is. I mean, it doesn't ring false. It rings very true, to the point that I looked up to see, like, did I not hear about, I mean, that's just the way the news works. But, and that's when I did some more, digging about his life and what he wrote about. But it's terrific. It's just another way to get a different perspective, to look at something from, another side, especially during this year where I think that's important. But
absolutely. Also,
I just thought it was cool for, leave me alone, but also, well, you leave me alone, but you don't leave me alone. Like, I want to pick and choose. And that feels
like exactly. That feels like me all the time. Like I like certain people and I want them around me.
Right.
Everyone else, go F off.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. And I like the idea. I think that's a universal feeling. He wrote a very universal character in that we all have that feeling like, I want to find my own path.
Without anyone telling me, pressuring me, whatever. Yeah.
I want to figure out where I belong and what makes sense for me. But at the same time, we need people.
Yeah.
So I always think that's very talenting in a writer that can write a universal character that also has very specific experiences.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. And how cool that you got that from our interview with Nana.
I know. Yeah. I ordered it after I told you that after we got off the Zoom with him, I had like a blackout moment where I ordered like 10 books that he recommended, and they just kept coming. And I'm like, what did I do? Like, I did not remember ordering all of those books. And this was one of them. And I'm so glad I did. Like, I had no recollection. They start coming in the mail, and I'm like, what did I do?
Wow, you were just so in joy after our interview. You're like, I got to do this.
I need all of these
I got to block
books.
it out, too. Yeah.
Wow. And I've been happy with everyone that I've read. So, because Lester was in that group, and I loved that book. Yeah.
I just got one of his recommendations, Stakes is High, from the library.
Ooh.
So we'll see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully it lives up.
Oh,
but
boy.
It's great.
I love the idea of blackout moments, and your
blackout
go-to
ordering.
is just ordering some books.
Yeah. Just, okay.
Whoops. I've heard of people who like take Ambien for sleep, and sometimes they're like, shopping while they're high. If you were to do that, you would probably have a whole new room full of books.
Yeah, I can't imagine, because I wasn't on Ambien. It was like middle of the day. I mean, it wasn't early evening.
Yeah.
And I just was like, I need all these. And then I don't know. But then I had no recollection of buying them until they came, that's a scary place to be.
It is a scary place. It's like your subconscious just like, nope, doing this. And then your conscious was like, let's block this out.
Yeah, let's pretend it never happened.
Pretend it never happened. Yeah.
Wow. And somehow, like, they all ended up coming at different times, I think, because they were released at different points. And so that wasn't helpful either, because that was multiple boxes. That's not helping hide any kind of book buying problems. Just multiple boxes.
But then again, you're getting surprise books. That's pretty
great.
cool.
It was pretty great.
Yeah. It's like you get to open it and be like, what did I do?
What happened?
Yeah. Oh, what my blackout?
Yeah.
Yield? Here it is.
Oh, yay.
Well, I've got, for other genre pick, I've got some stuff talking about, just leave me alone, but also the right people. Yeah. So I have a trio of articles, actually.
Okay.
And to me, these, I've read it various times, and they sort of explore a bit of that sentiment from the song. specifically about why won't men leave women alone.
Oh.
So first is a personal essay from Bustle by Lindsay Merbaum, and this was published in 2016, prior to some of the Me Too revelations, stuff like that. It's called Why Won't Men Leave Me Alone When I'm Reading? I thought this spoke to us very much. The author, she loves to go to local bars, grab a drink, and read. And she says in the article, I've always had a great tendency. I can block out background noise. I don't, I just, even in low light, I love doing it. It's great. So I was like, yes, that sounds fantastic. But she noticed a pattern that guys would continually come up and interrupt her. They would tease her with things like, wow, you're so serious. Or they would doubt her, like, you're not really reading. Or they were offended if she didn't somehow engage with them. So she asked friends, too, like, do you have this experience? Are you, like, out at bars doing your own thing, reading? And they all said yes. And so much so that she was actually talking about via social media, like, let's create a bar just for women who want booze and books, which when I saw that, I was like, oh, my God, that's our next business idea.
That's a genius business idea.
But really, the article talks about like what happens when women go into public spaces and they're minding their own business. They just want to be left alone, but some men can't handle it. And harassment starts and it can escalate quickly, which leads me to my second article. And this is an article that talks more about harassment, particularly the why. Like, why do men do this? It's from The Atlantic by Olga Kazan, and it's called Why Men Sexually Harass Women. Short and to the point.
Olga,
Yes. So Olga wrote this during the Kavanaugh hearings in 2018. And she wonders, why the hell would men feel like they can do this, especially when women are taught to sit back and just sort of let others dictate what goes on? She entertains the idea of, okay, this boys will be boys thing. Is there something to it? And this idea that, you know, the boys are sort of nasty. They have no impulse control. That's just who they are.
Yeah,
which we've torn apart in the past.
Yeah.
But she looks at studies to see, you know, is this the case? Are boys more prone to risk taking? Are they more prone to this kind of stuff? But she really examines the idea. It's not biology. It's not psychology. It's how we teach our boys to be aggressive. And it's also the inequality in workforces. Like, men still dominate in leadership roles, and power can mess up a mind, which then leads me to my third. See, they all kind of come together.
Genius.
I couldn't just do one.
No.
I had to do all three.
I like it. Yeah.
This last article sort of looks at that idea of power head on, and it's from Vox in 2017 by Mimi Kramer. It's called The Double Life of the Respectable Men Who Harass Women. And this author, she was sort of grappling with the news around the time of Harvey Weinstein coming out. And she concludes that it's all about getting away with something. You know, men with power like the idea of leading a secret life, and they like having power to dictate women's lives. They don't think women should be left alone.
Okay.
So I chose these articles for this theme because I think so many times we just want to be left alone. We just want to do our thing. We just want to enjoy the life that we have. We want to just be in a work setting and just do our goddamn work.
Right.
But as the recent years have shown, many, if not most of us, are not left alone. And it's so frustrating. But these articles sort of gave me a bit of insight into why this is happening. Now, I could have easily chosen some of the books that we've read before, I think, for this theme, too. And so I'd encourage our listeners, if you haven't yet, check out She Said by Jodi Kantor and Megan Twohey. Check out Nobody's Victim by Carrie Goldberg. Classic cases of women that just want to be left alone and are very much not. And it really digs into specifics about those cases, but also a little bit more about the psychology, too, of why this happens. So, yeah. There you go. Trio of hard-hitting articles that starts from just the idea of reading in a goddamn bar alone.
Amazing.
And also, that's our next idea.
That's a genius idea. I was contemplating that almost the whole time you're talking. Like, how do we make this work?
Yeah. Just a bar.
That's
for
terrific.
Women. Just want to drink and read.
Yeah. That's all.
And you don't have to talk to anybody.
No.
Just go off in your corner.
No.
It's fine.
And that article could be like on the back of our drink menus.
It's like, this is why we do this. This is
it.
it.
This is our mission statement. Well, the other book that I picked for this week for other genre, I was very excited. Just came out this week. I read it that fast. Yeah. Maybe it
came out on Tuesday?
Tuesday of the prior week, I guess. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Still,
yeah. It's called Solutions and Other Problems by Allie Brosh. And I recommended her book, Hyperbole and a Half. It has been like 7.5 years since she wrote that other book. And if you don't remember, it's kind of a hybrid. Like it's pictures and personal essays. And she dealt a lot with like her own personal depression and dealing with, true clinical depression that people can't fix for you. They don't understand it. It was really like a very interesting reading experience because it was at both turns like hilarious and heartbreaking and had a lot of really interesting things to say with these really hilarious drawings. And this book is the same. First of all, I read it so fast. It's the same as my first pick this week in terms of like I laughed and I cried. And
wow.
She talks a lot again about, she has some great stuff in here about her growing up, and she's a self-proclaimed weirdo and recluse, and so her whole mantra is kind of like leave me alone. Like there's an entire section about how she actually went through a divorce and was like, I don't even want animals. Like I need no one to depend on me. I need to be by myself. And then kind of grappling with what that actually means, like when you're literally like responsible for nothing. So really hilarious, but also really, really deep. And it's a very interesting style to do that in because it's, mainly pictures, but there's also, the essays in between. And the drawings herself are part of what gets me. Like this is, I'm showing Amy now.
Yeah.
This is a kid that lives in her apartment that won't leave her alone. So this picture of this child comes up multiple times, and just the way she drew it,
and the way she drew herself with her wide eyes, like, oh God, no.
Yeah, and that's how she always looks in the, look at this, just kid gets more and more.
Oh my God.
But you can just imagine what the kid is like. Like, it's the most crude drawings, but they're perfect.
Perfect.
And it's such an ingenious way to tell a story and to really help you understand things. She talks a lot about her sister in this one, which her sister died since she published her last book. And so she's dealing with that on a lot of levels. But like I said, really at the heart of it, she is very much one of those people that's like, just leave me alone. Just let me do my thing. I also love this because I think we need more books like this that bend genres and break out of boundaries. Like I showed this book to Evan because he loves to draw. And I think even sometimes in creative fields, we tend to like pigeonhole how that can be used. And I just liked it so much to show him like the drawings aren't perfect and the writing is just as important as the drawing part. He loves graphic novels, but I sometimes, depending on what graphic novel he's into, sometimes you can lose some of the story.
Yes.
The drawings are wonderful, but maybe, he's struggled sometimes to find series that do both.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is an example of a whole different type, almost, of a graphic novel.
Yeah.
So I am not kidding. I laughed out loud so many times. And
wow.
It's one of those that you're like looking around like, I got to show someone this picture. It's so funny. Like, how did she come up with this? It's so hilarious. So I highly recommend. It's so relatable. And again, I liked it just the same way that Gabrielle Bump did, in that she wrote universal characters that had very specific experiences. Like her experience in life, very different from my own, but universal in that I can very much relate to some of the feelings and some of the emotion attached to certain events and dealing with that emotion. So highly recommend. I recommend both, but this one in particular, I think I almost enjoyed more probably.
So question for you. Did you bring this just to show me, or can I borrow it?
You can borrow it.
Oh, okay, excellent. Great.
Both, actually.
Okay, good.
And I actually meant to bring the other one in case you wanted to read it because I have it too, but I left it on my chair.
Well, I'll take one.
Okay.
That's
I'll bring
fine.
the other one.
Oh, okay, great.
Next time. Yeah, sorry. It's not as heavy either, so. It's also probably one of my favorite books of the year. Like this week, both those books that I read this week, I was like, I'm in love with both of these.
You were delivering hard hitters in this week's episode.
I didn't even know it. They just came in boxes and I devoured them.
Was this a blackout one too, or did you knowingly do this?
I had pre-ordered this, but I had forgotten when it was coming out.
Oh, yeah. So it was a surprise.
Dates have changed and stuff because of COVID, and I pre-ordered it when I found out she wrote. I was so excited. And then I sent Mason, our mailbox is not in front of our house. It's down the street a little bit because we have like a, group mailbox thing. So sometimes I send Mason as exercise, like, here, take my key and run down there. And he was like trying to run back, but he was like struggling. And I'm like, what does he have that he's struggling so hard with? And then he's like, what is this? And he gave it to me, and it was this book, but inside, and it was so heavy. And I was like, what is that?
Yeah, this is probably a good portion of his body weight. So,
yeah. He really, he was so sweaty and out of breath.
So thank you, Allie Brosh, for, tiring your kid out, too.
Exactly. Doing my bidding. And then I just was like, get a drink. And I was just delighted. I had to start reading right away.
So his PE these days is running back and forth to the mailbox.
It's probably the one good part about doing school at home is being his PE teacher.
Yeah. You're like, go run some laps. Go run hot laps.
I like it when I have to do him and Evan together, middle school. Because, like, they'll give Evan actual, like, okay, you need to, run for 5 minutes, do 10 push-ups. So I make them both do it. And it's delightful.
Oh, my God, yeah. Are you working out some of your aggression when you become their PE teacher? Yeah.
I can say things like, no, start over. That you didn't even try.
Have you started a family dodgeball session?
No, I'm afraid to do that.
Staple of PE.
Mike really thinks that dodgeball movie is funny, so I'm afraid to give him that kind of power.
Yeah, no, that's not a good idea.
Because he frequently says, if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. So I feel like no.
Yeah, no, don't do that.
No,
don't let him.
That's not an okay thing.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah, that's not good. Well, pop culture-wise, no dodgeballs, no wrenches.
Okay.
Yeah. I chose a show on Netflix that ran from 2015 to 2019, 3 seasons. It's done, all done, ready to binge. Jessica Jones, starring Kristen Ritter.
Okay.
This is part of the Marvel Universe. I think this is probably one of the most grounded of the Marvel shows on Netflix. And here's what it's all about. So Jessica, she just wants to be left alone. That's the main through line of this. She is a hard drinking private investigator who does what she needs to make money and get by. She would have fit well. Remember our episode about curmudgeons?
Yeah.
She would have been an excellent curmudgeon.
Okay.
But she's like 30, so it's fantastic. Now, the reason that she kind of just wants to be left alone, she's actually got some powers. She has super strength. And for a brief time, when she first got the powers, before this show started, she thought that she could be a superhero. She was ready to go out, help people use this power to, others' benefits. But it ended terribly. Partly because she was taken hostage by a man named Kilgrave, a man who also has powers. When he says something or he gives commands, it directly acts on a person's brain so that they do it, even if it's to hurt themselves, even if it's to hurt others, anything. So he's just a terrible person to begin with, and then this power has accentuated it. He convinced Jessica through this power to be his girlfriend, to be his, once he discovered that she had powers, to be his sort of, powerful dude. Yeah. So he kept her under his sway for a long time. So she is deeply cynical. She's traumatized, really.
Yeah.
And she wants nothing to do with most people, which is part of why she's a curmudgeon, which, makes a lot of sense. But at the very beginning of this show, she takes on a case that ends up involving Kilgrave. Another girl was hurt in the way that she was. So this starts this whole series of events where she has to sort of weigh being left alone versus getting back at the man who kidnapped and raped her. And I love this because it sort of ties into the concept of men not leaving women alone, in a very sort of obviously hyperbolized way.
Right.
Feeling like, women are kind of theirs to use. And it also sort of takes the being left alone impulse to a sort of natural conclusion in a Marvel world. I love her as Jessica Jones. The actress Kristen Ritter is terrific. I think there's lots of great side characters. There's a badass lawyer played by the woman who will always be Trinity to me from The Matrix. Her real name is Carrie Ann Moss, but she's Trinity.
Right. Yeah.
It has Luke Cage.
Oh.
And Kilgrave, played by David Tennant, for my is one of the best villains ever. I think it's just the way that he can get into a person's brain and make them act against their own best interests is really scary, really terrifying. And so pitting the two of them together is a really interesting show. So yeah, it ran for 3 seasons. It goes in directions you never would have guessed. It's just sort of a side thing from the movies. So you don't have to have seen the movies necessarily to watch this show. And yeah, she just wants to be left alone.
Just leave me alone.
Leave me alone.
Leave me alone.
But then she can't. She can't leave others alone.
No.
Yeah. Jessica Jones.
Jessica Jones.
Who also, by the way, has the best sort of uniform. It's just like jeans with holes in her knees, some combat boots, a black leather jacket, and fingerless gloves. It's a great look.
That's exactly what I would want my uniform to be.
Yeah.
No spandex for me.
No.
That's terrific. Well, I went the direction of leave my rights alone this week. Okay?
Are we coming in hot on this one?
Well, a little bit.
Okay.
So I watched a documentary. It's on Amazon Prime called All In, The Fight for Democracy.
Is this about the ACLU?
It features Stacey Abrams. It's really talking about voter
suppression.
suppression.
I was thinking of another one. Okay,
no,
sorry.
No, that's fine. This one, like I said, it features Stacey Abrams. She's kind of one of the main people voicing it, but it's about voter suppression. And I would say that this is a very accessible documentary about that. I don't think that it's probably like the most hard-hitting documentary, but what it does in a really compact space is remind you exactly where all of this has come from and the forms it's taking today. And I think it's incredibly important right now, headed into an election, that people understand that these seemingly innocuous practices on the surface, the things that maybe they don't affect you, maybe you're lucky enough to not have that as an issue, affect other people. And when you give people that power, slowly it does start to affect you. And a prime example, I watched this week, and just this week, the governor of Texas signed into law that in every county, there's only going to be one polling place
I saw that.
in the entire state of Texas. And if you don't understand the ramifications of that, you don't even have to be feeling like your rights are being suppressed to know that that's a shit show.
Yeah.
Just for people trying to vote. That
Yeah.
doesn't even, not even on any other level. But when you watch this documentary and they take you all the way back to, voter rights first being granted all the way through today. But what I also like about it is that I have loved Stacey Abrams since I first saw her. She's an amazing speaker.
Yeah.
And you get to see a little bit more of her, about her growing up. You meet her parents. You hear some stories about her grandma, about the first time her grandma voted and her grandpa. And there's some just really interesting kind of familial ties in there. And she does such a great job of explaining things and putting it in a black and white way. And obviously someone that lost her election due to voter suppression and due to the person who she was running against being in charge of the election, which is the most backwards thing I can think of. So it's really good. I picked it for this theme, like I said, just leave our rights alone. If you want to win so bad, if you're so great, shouldn't you be able to just win? Let people vote.
Yeah.
What are you scared of? What it tells me is that you know everything you're doing is messed up and you're scared. And so
you're scared of what will happen when everyone can vote.
Yes.
You know you will be voted out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And if you spent as much time worrying about being a voice for the people as you do silencing the voice of the people, you wouldn't have this problem. And you'd be looking a lot different as a leader. But we all know that's not going to happen. Anyway, I just think it's an important documentary. I even think that this is, it's something that Mike and I have even talked about showing Evan, just because it's a very accessible.
Yeah, that would be great.
It helps kind of lay the groundwork for where some of this stuff started. Like I said, it's like real quick, an hour, 20 minutes or something. So it's not going to give you everything, but it really reminds you if you've heard about it before. And if you haven't, it's a great introduction into understanding where voter suppression comes from and why it is so unbelievabally important. Not to mention that they use one of my favorite quotes from RBG, which relates to the voter suppression laws when that came before the Supreme Court a few years ago, and they voted to allow this kind of behavior. And she said, quote her again, "That's like throwing away your umbrella during a rainstorm because you're not getting wet." And that to me is like this whole documentary reminded me of that, like how blessed and lucky I have been to not deal with what I would say is outward voter suppression in my life. But I'm not naive enough to think that when you give people power that it won't filter to other places.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might be specifically aimed at one group now, but don't think that they can't use that power for other
Exactly,
things.
because that is going to change over time, and the group that they want to keep out of power will continually morph. Yeah. That's such a great idea to be able to show your 13-year-old, because I don't know about you, but when I was that age, I didn't really know about voter suppression. I knew about the civil rights movement of the 60s, but growing up, it felt like, yep, that's all done. It's all taken care of. Everyone's good now,
Right.
you know?
Yes, exactly.
Whereas very much not the case. And only until I was an adult did I sort of realize what was going on here.
Yeah.
So what a great eye-opening experience that could be.
Yeah, and I think like even Mike said, you know, I knew some of these things, but I guess putting it in that other lens or really seeing how that played out is different, you know? And I think if anything, it sparks your interest to learn more if you don't know anything about it. And if you do, it's just a good reminder that that's where we're headed, and we need to do everything we can to protect rights. And I mean rights of everyone, not just rights of a few people.
Yeah.
So
It's interesting you bring that. I was telling you before we recorded that I've been listening to a podcast called Black Frasier with Phoebe Robinson, which terrific title, by the way. And there's a whole theme song just called Black Frasier.
That's amazing.
But one of her recent guests was Michelle Obama. And, you know, Michelle and Barack both have been very vocal about we need everyone to vote, especially since John Lewis has died, and so many people have fought and died for the right for everyone to vote, that we cannot take this for advantage. But she said very specifically, like kind of you did, like if they allowed everyone to vote, they knew what would happen. So that's why voter suppression is such a thing.
And that's what I struggle, and what the documentary does such a good job of, because there's one simple way to challenge this. Explain to me how that law, that policy, having one polling place, what does that help? Explain to me, what are you making better for voters? How are you making it easier? Because their honest to God constitutional job is to make sure everyone can vote. That's their job. That's what they're elected to do. So if you can't explain to me how that policy is going to make it easier for everyone, then what are we doing it for?
Yeah, and it's so blatant that it's
so blatant.
not.
It's like basically they've said, look, we're going to cheat. So
so
get
might
ready.
as well just be public. Here it
Round
is.
the wagons. We're going to cheat. Get ready. I mean, so I think it's important. I think, like you said, any way that you can hear about it, that you can get more information on it, we're all responsible for it. You know, John Lewis died, RBG died. It's time that, you know, some other people step up and we say, we're not going to, we have to fight for everyone, not just for the rights that we value.
Yep, exactly.
So,
Oof.
coming in hot. Now just leave me alone and go vote.
Just leave me alone and my rights.
Yeah.
I want my rights left alone.
I do want my rights left alone.
Oh, man, I don't know if that's going to happen.
It's not, but that's fine.
That's fine.
Let's
It's
talk about
fine.
voting. Vote.
Yes.
Are you registered to vote?
Whew.
If you're not, you get registered to
time.
vote right now.
Yeah.
And don't
remember-
believe the bullshit that your mail-in ballot's going to be thrown out.
Oh, good Lord. No.
Don't buy into any of that.
No.
If you are healthy, see if you can be a poll worker.
Yep.
We need people to vote.
Yes, we do.
And that's all I'm going to say about that.
Our word for the week is vote.
Vote. Like Pee Wee Herman.
Yes.
Every time you hear the word vote, drink.
And leave me alone. Leave me alone while I vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leave me alone so I can vote.
Oh.
Man,
Oof.
just want to vote.
I like that we named this telephone, and really it's going to be like people are going to look at it and be like, I have no idea what that's about. So I'm just going to listen to it.
Good.
And we're going to come at you.
Should we remake the Lady Gaga Beyonce video? And
Oh,
it'll just
yeah.
be you and I in polling places,
Yes.
just looking at a phone, be like, I'm trying to vote. Quit blowing me up. I'm trying to vote.
I would like to change it because they are in very revealing outfits during
Yeah,
a lot
that's
of it.
not
So we're not going to do that part.
We could
No.
just be in sweats.
Yes, we
We
can.
could be the exact opposite.
Oh my God, yeah. I
The
could do that.
baggiest, comfiest
Yes.
sweats we can find.
Oh God.
Just real.
And you know what? You can vote in your comfiest sweats.
You can.
You can do it.
Nobody cares.
Oh my God.
Vote.
Especially in 2020. Nobody cares what you look like.
No. Get out there and do it.
Do it.
Do it. Wear your mask if you have to go,
Oh God, yeah.
but vote.
Yeah. And I guess there's nothing else to say except...
Happy reading.
I'm up again. Same night, another dream. Before trying this recording thing, I didn't remember much of anything of these dreams. I didn't remember much from any of the women. And one night of doing this, and it's broken things open. The dreams they're in me, and they're coming out of me, and...
Talk to me. I am not broken. I am the most whole, most real.
Cause their despair. I wait for the word. Witch.
Look at the mad woman in her cage. She was a woman with holes inside her. That was the heaviest factor, the final evidence, the heart of the issue.
Somehow, you understand this. You hear me. Wherever you are, whatever this is, you... This isn't a dream journal anymore. It's not. It's just fact. Because now this is some sort of record. What are these dreams? Maybe there's a better question. Who are these women? Weird Woman is a Broads and Books production. All 9 episodes are available January 10th. Listen and subscribe to Weird Woman on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and your favorite podcast platform. That's WYRD Woman, wherever you listen to podcasts.